Welcome to this session where I am going to be talking about my six-part framework called PurposeFlow Business Accelerator. So let's go ahead and get started. So it's a six-part framework, and it starts with identity and assignment. This is basically where you clarify who you are and what you're called to build. It has five other parts, and I'm not going to go into those in specific detail today, but the second part is spiritual and strategic infrastructure. The third part is offer architecture. The fourth part is branding and ethical sales. The fifth part is rhythm and revenue stability. And the sixth part is launch, legacy, and leverage. So let's get into it for today. So when I think about identity and assignment, it really is about clarifying who you are and what you've been called to build. So, by the end of today's session, you should know whether or not you need clarity, whether you are looking for community, or maybe you need structure. So, here's the problem. Many faith-aligned women aren't stuck because they lack talent. You probably know what I mean by this. They're stuck because they lack clarity. And so, if you are confused about who you are and what you're offering, your prospective clients are going to be confused as well. I want you to understand that your calling does not have an expiration date. You have not aged out. You have not missed your window, and your detours were actually preparation. I know this because when I think about my own story, I really understand that all the things that I went through are what brought me to where I am today. So I just want to share my story with you briefly because it may be similar to your own. So my journey started way back many years ago when I was a salesperson for AT&T. And I remember thinking when I got that job that I really didn't want to be a salesperson. In my mind, sales conjured up that image of the used car salesperson, right? That unethical person who's trying to get you to buy something that you don't need or sell you a lemon just so they can make quota. And so for me, sales didn't have a really good ring to it. However, I also understood that in order to be successful, you had to know how to sell. You have to know how to sell yourself. You have to know how to sell your ideas. You have to know how to sell products. And so I took this job at AT&T as a salesperson, and I did many different kinds of sales from transactional selling to relationship selling. And what I really learned during that period of time is that building a relationship with the client and solving their problems is the only way to really sell. I've had situations where I sold something the client didn't need or wasn't right for the client, and I actually refunded their money and didn't get the sale credit because it wasn't the right thing for the client. And so I knew even then at an early age that for me, selling really had to be ethical. Well, as chance would have it, the company downsized, and I took that opportunity to take the severance package and start my own business. And so I started thinking about what do I really like to do? I like helping people. I like mentoring people. I like supporting people. I like solving problems. And so I started my own consulting company where I did coaching and consulting. And I did that for about 10 years. And during that period of time, I remember thinking, wow, entrepreneurship is feast or famine. Like when you are working on the business, you're not making any money. And when you are making money, if you're a solopreneur, when you're making money, you're not building business. So when you're done with this project, you wake up and now it's time to hustle all over again. And so that whole hustle mentality kind of was not appealing to me. After about 10 years, I decided to go back to school and get my doctorate from George Washington University. And during that season, it was about 5 years. During that season, I really studied the experience of growth-oriented women entrepreneur. And I did my dissertation on the topic of hegemonic masculinity in entrepreneurship. And so this is where entrepreneurship is gendered male and everything about the way women do business is considered lacking or um, you know, a deficit model. And so my dissertation was about how women entrepreneurs are successful and are growing businesses, and we should not be compared to men. So that felt like purpose for me. And so after doing my doctorate, I got my dream job. It wasn't in entrepreneurship, it was actually in organizational development. And I loved it. I was traveling the world. I was a partner at the consulting firm. I had a large project that I was managing, and I sat on the board. And I thought this was it for me. I was going to retire from that company. They married me, committed to stay for 10 years. I married them, and everything was great. I was going to retire from there. But you know that the best laid plans don't always go your way. And so in January of 2025, the executive order that dismantled USAID actually took my job with it. And I was devastated, but it was an opportunity to pivot. And so the funny thing is, in November of 2024, God woke me up at 3 o'clock in the morning and told me to start a YouTube channel. And I was like, oh my God, I do not want to start a YouTube channel. I don't want people to see me. I don't want the people at my job to know what I'm doing. I don't want them to know anything about me. I don't want anybody in my business. And God said, start the YouTube channel. And I was obedient. I started a YouTube channel back in 2024. I didn't know what I was doing. It was messy. I didn't want to be on camera. I didn't know how to be on camera. It was hard to just be myself. I didn't even know what myself was on camera. But I think in those early days, he told me to do that because he knew that he had a platform for me. And so I had to show up. I did what I was supposed to do. I started with the Proverbs, and I just looked at the Proverbs and applied it to business, and that's where I started. And that turned into a lot of other things, including a podcast that I do for women entrepreneurs. So all that to say that my journey went from knowing that I was called to work with women, took some turns and twists along the way, and brought me right back to where I am today, where I'm supporting women entrepreneurs. So it's important that we understand that life does come with ups and downs, and our job is to pivot and show up to do what we were called to do. So that led me to where I am today, where I really thought about entrepreneurship the way that I was doing it the first time that I entered into it way back when. And I realized that was a lot of hustle, a lot of hype, a lot of urgency, a lot of, things that made me feel like this wasn't for me and it'd be easier to go get a job. And even while I was in a job, I thought, oh, I'm not sure that I want to work for somebody else. I want to work for myself. So there was always that tension between wanting to be an entrepreneur and not really loving working for other people. And so when I came back into the space, I had to really think about how I wanted to do it and what didn't work for me and how I could do it better. And so that's where the pivot took place. I created this process, this framework called PurposeFlow Business Accelerator, and the whole point of it is less hustle, more flow, right? This is what you're called to do, so it's not supposed to be so hard. And if we just step back and really focus on the things that we were called to do and to focus on branding as identity, marketing as messaging, and sales as service. That takes all that pressure off of us. And really, we're here to serve. If we're doing business as a ministry, then we're here to serve. And so if we're called to do this, then there is a space for us where we don't have to hustle. We don't have to do it the way the world is doing it. And so that leads me to what I want to talk to about today, and that's the first part of the framework, which is identity and assignment. So, identity comes before strategy. And what I mean by that is that your identity really is who you are. It's not your logo, right? Your brand is not your logo. Your brand aren't the beautiful colors that you select. Your brand is not even your business collateral, your websites, your letterhead, your business card, all those pretty things that we tend to work on so that we look good and we look professional. No, your brand is your identity. How you show up in the space speaks volumes. And if you are not consistent and authentic in the way that you show up, it doesn't matter what logo you have or what your colors are, or how beautiful your website is. People are going to buy from someone they know, like, and trust, and authenticity and your identity is going to speak volumes. And so, before God gave you a strategy, he clarifies your identity. And so spend time really getting clear who you are, because that's going to be the core of everything. And I want you to just stop for a moment, maybe even pause this video and think about these questions. Your unique selling proposition is what makes you unique and what you are uniquely qualified to do. The brand identity framework is composed of 4 different components: your core values, your gifts, your life experiences, and your passion. And right there at the nexus, right there at the center, is where your brand identity is. It's made up of all 4 of those components. So if you could really understand those things about yourself, your core values, your gifts, your life experiences, and your passion, and how all those things come together, that helps you to understand who you are and what your brand identity is. When I talk about the assignment principle, I'm talking about, what are you assigned to do? What are you uniquely assigned to do? So let me give you some examples of this. So Queen Esther, she was positioned for such a time of this. She was positioned to save her people from genocide. Madam C.J. Walker, you might be familiar with her. She was an entrepreneur who was uniquely positioned to provide hair care products for African American women, and she helped to launch many women into entrepreneurship so that they could care for and feed their families. Me, I help purpose-driven women entrepreneurs get really clear about branding, marketing, and sales so they can rebuild with clarity. How about you? What is your purpose, your audience, and the problem that you solve? Remember, specific people, clear messages, and sustainable impact. That's what we're going for. I want you to be clear that assignment is not about exclusion, it's about stewardship. So when we really get clear on our target audience, we do have to hone it down to just one specific thing, but we're not trying to necessarily exclude people. We're trying to steward those people we were called to serve. Now, one thing I want to be clear about is that if you're clear about your message and what you do, what you offer, who you serve, there will be other people who come along, and that's okay. We don't turn them away, but we want to focus on our clear target audience. So, identify your audience, create your client avatar. Every calling has a tribe that's attached to it. So you got to figure out, what does your tribe look like? So I want you to meet Grace. This is my client avatar. She's 40, she's educated, she's competent, she's spiritually grounded, but she feels a little bit stretched. She feels called to something, and she is highly capable. She's probably been a leader in many other aspects of her life, and now she's launching into something that's purpose related or purpose driven. She's carrying responsibility. She's on the edge of something big. She's slightly tired. She's been working really, really hard. She's overwhelmed by the tech. Trying to figure out the back end of this business isn't always easy. She's in transition. Maybe she had a disruption. Now she's pivoting to something new. She wants to build, but she feels kind of late. She feels like everybody else is doing it and she's left behind. So, if you try to reach everyone, you will reach absolutely no one. Your message has to be clearly articulated to that one person. For me, it's my avatar, Grace. She knows exactly who she is when she hears the message, because it's created just for her. So I want you to think about describing your client avatar, the demographics, the spiritual identity, the emotional struggles, the hair on fire problem that they have, the practical needs that they have, their aspirations, and where she actually hands out. Your client is not a niche. Your client is really your assignment. And so I want you to think about the real person, what they're struggling with. This is a human being. And so be very, very specific about who this person is so that you have a very clear understanding in your mind about who you are serving. The other thing I want you to focus on is your hair on fire problem. What is the problem that you are solving? When your hair is on fire, it's actually urgent, emotional, financial, identity threatening. There is something there that needs to be fixed right away. If your hair is on fire, you need to run to the sink and pour water on it. You can't wait any longer. And so when you think about possible examples of hair on fire problems, it could be I lost my job and I don't know what to do, or I am called, but I feel stuck and I don't have any idea what I'm supposed to be focusing on. Or I have an idea, but I have no clue how to do this. I have no structure. So there's something there. There's a problem, and she's struggling to try to figure out how to solve that problem. So I want you to be clear that you are not called to put out every fire. You are called to solve her specific problem. So here it is. Business is born at the nexus of your calling and her crisis. And I want you to understand it's just a little space in between where you show up and you solve her problem. My ideal client is 40 plus. She is faith driven. She feels that she's called to launch a business, but she's overwhelmed by the structure and is afraid that she might be too late. What is your ideal client statement? So here is a framework that you can use to fill out your own client statement. And so you would say, my client is, and then you'd share what the demographics is, what she's struggling with, so what the hair on fire problem is, what solution you offer. She's desperately seeking that solution, and she feels something. She feels stuck. She feels lost. She feels overwhelmed. What is it that she's feeling that's stopping her from getting what she needs? I want you to go ahead and pause the video again and take some time to write out your response to your ideal client statement. So, as I said before, I'm focusing specifically on branding, marketing, and sales because I really think that we can do entrepreneurship without manipulating people. I believe that the buyer has agency. And so we're not just trying to sell so we can make money. We are here because we want to solve real problems. We want to support people. We want to help meet certain needs. And so let's talk about the offer that you would have. An offer requires a clear promise, a clear process, a clear value, and it has to have integrity, right? We don't create things just so we can sell something to someone and make a lot of money and it doesn't work. Think of that used car salesperson and the lemon, right? They know that the car doesn't work, but they're going to sell it to you anyway. That's not who we are. We don't show up in our space this way. We want clarity, which leads to confidence, and the confidence that we have that we can solve their problem actually leads to conversion or a sale. If you are unclear, your marketing will be unclear. If your marketing is unclear, your revenue will be inconsistent. So if you're struggling, trying to figure out how to sell, get that next sale, get that next client, it might be a good opportunity to go back and look at your messaging and make sure that it's clear. So I want to talk to you a little bit about what I call the germination principle. And this is something that a friend of mine, Dr. Erica, shared with me, and it really stuck with me. And I call it the germination principle. So you think about a seed as you put it in the ground. It only wakes up when you bury it, right? You put it in the ground, it wakes up, it sprouts, and it has to stay underground until it's time for it to break through. If you dig that seed up while
Uh,
it is germinating,
while it
you
is
will
germinating,
abort
you
the
will
process.
process.
And if you think about that from a business perspective, we do things and we check on it too soon, or we, take action and we think it's going to happen overnight. It doesn't happen that way. It takes time. It has to germinate. You can
You
reap a
can reap a
harvest once that seed breaks ground. And I want you to understand that that point when we bury our seed in the ground, when we put all our effort into building our business, that takes time and it's an essential part of the growth process. One of the things that I'm very clear about is that most of the women that I work with have been so successful in other arenas of their lives. They're leaders, they're professionals, they're well accomplished, they're educated, they've had so many successes, and yet attempting to do entrepreneurship feels so much different. It feels like a challenge. It feels like they failed. And so I want you to know women do not fail because they're incapable. We are fully capable of doing this. The reason we fail is because we give up before the seed breaks through. Here's the thing. An overnight success requires a whole lot of man hours and lots of years of germination in order for it to break ground and then become something that everybody recognizes as a success. So if you're in the early stages of your growth process, don't discount that. Don't despise the small beginnings. Okay, here's some reflection questions that I have for you. So I'm going to ask you to just take a moment, answer those questions for yourself. Get a journal, just jot that down because that's going to really help you clarify who you are, who you serve, and what you're called to do. All right, here's a declaration for you. I am called, I am clear, and I build with purpose, not pressure. And as I said before, our mantra really is less hustle, more flow. We're not trying to put a whole lot of pressure on ourselves, urgency and scarcity, and all of those things that make you feel like you're behind and you're lost and confused. What we're trying to do is slow this down and create a space for practice so that we can actually move forward in a way that's aligned with who we are and what our values are. Still clarifying, well, if you're still clarifying, if you're discerning your identity and your assignment, you might want to join me in a community that I've started called PurposeFlow Community. And what's inside of Purpose Flow is a space for you to do identity work, get aligned with by having conversations. You'll get accountability from other like-minded women, and you'll get structure without hustle. You'll start to practice some of the things that are going to move the needle as you build your business. It's a community of faith-aligned women who are actively building their businesses and supporting each other in the process. So if that's you, you might be interested in Purpose Flow Next Client Path. And again, it's a space for women who are not just consuming, these women are building. And if you're ready to participate and grow, come on inside. The QR code is there for you to take advantage of. It's a free community. So you come in, get acquainted, figure out what it is that you want to do and support other women along the way as they will support you. What about if you're ready to build? So this is for the woman who already knows her calling, but she needs structure around the offer. I created this business builder. It's a interactive template where you can fill out questions from clarity all the way down to what your offer is. And then you do a one-on-one call with me, and I help debrief that and help you figure out what that next step is for you. If that sounds like something that you might be interested in, we're going to clarify the offer, identify your client, refine your positioning, and then map out your next steps. This is for a woman who needs the support to create and launch her next offer. And so, if that's for you, we have the Purpose to Profit Builder. It's where germination takes place, it's where you get space for real deep thinking and the debrief that I promise to walk you through and help you create your next steps. If that's for you, go ahead and scan that QR code and take advantage of the Purpose to Profit Builder. Do you have a story? Now, I mentioned earlier that God woke me up at 3 o'clock in the morning and told me to start a YouTube channel. What that evolved into is a podcast that I do called Women of Faith and Purpose. If your journey intersects faith and entrepreneurship, I'd love to talk to you. I'd love to have you a guest on the podcast. So connect with me to be a guest on Women of Faith and Purpose. And I'm interviewing 100 women. So you get to tell your story. I edit and share the video back to you. I also put it on my social media channels, and then you can take the edited version and you can put it on your social media channels or your website as well. So if you want to find out how to be a guest on the podcast, then check out the podcast there, scan that QR code, and you can see some of the earlier episodes. Thank you for joining me today as we talked about the PurposeFlow Business Accelerator, and that was the part one about identity and assignment. And so we will be continuing these messages as I go through the other parts of the framework. If you want to get in contact with me, you can find me at www.purposeguide.com. This is Dr. Andrea Richard Scott, and I'm the founder of Purpose Quest Coaching, LLC.